Welcome everybody to Swan Guild Atelier number 6. We've actually done 6 of these. I can't believe it already. We're doing one today on something that was very popular in terms of what people wanted to hear about and have a discussion on. It's on Earth and beyond space and looking at exploration. And so it's partly based on democracy and the fact that a lot of us wanted to talk about this. It's partly based on our news wrap team, who every week surfaces articles in the week that was, and started to realize, oh my Lord, like 20% of the articles we're surfacing are about Earth exploration and science and space exploration. So we should really do something. And certainly given the last couple months of billionaires in space and Planet Nines and a whole bunch of other things, there's a whole bunch of really intriguing possibilities here in terms of where we could go. So really want to thank everybody for joining us this afternoon. We're recording this for people, and we'll be throwing it up on YouTube over the next couple of days for people that can't join us. And the only thing for first timers that have come into the Swan Guild that we try to do with these sessions versus some of our other sessions is we try to actually build something out of this afterward. And so I really want a lively chat discussion. If you have great ideas and they might not see the light of day, definitely put it in chat, because somebody's going to be looking at that and making sense of that as well. And hopefully we'll produce a mini report that comes out of this as well. So welcome. And for first timers, I always throw this slide up just to at least give some semblance of what have you entered into here. We are a global network of thinkers and doers and sense makers and futurists and leaders. And our mission is to make sense of the world. And we do it in a number of different formats. There's about 1,800 of us now, which is really, really cool. We've had some of our biggest growth months in the last 2 or 3 months. So the word has gotten out. We do some really cool stuff. So please feel free to ask me or any of our board members questions about stuff ongoing if you're coming in for a first time. And I just wanted to pre-promote, because sometimes people have to chase right at the end. We do these ateliers once a month. We've planned out the next 5. So next month, we are doing the speed dating equivalent of great thinkers. And so we're calling it Swans and Nests. And so you'll get to meet 12 people in a span of, call it 75 to 80 minutes, and tumble about on a topic. But it's more of a networking thing. But hopefully you'll be able to at least evaluate a question or another with 12 really interesting people from around the world. Big event in November, 1,000-day radar. We are looking at 3-year trends across 20 different categories, and we'll definitely be producing something out of that. And closer to Christmas, we're doing something called Design the Future. And so the makers and the inventors will rule the world and invent the future. So we're going to bring those into our midst in December. And oh, wow, we actually have graphics here. I didn't even know that. Wow, thank you, Jill, who I think has come on here. Let's see if I can even get out of there. 4 new events as well that we're doing. Our sense making salon, which really is more about our craft and conversation. We're doing one of those on September 30th. I think the date might be wrong there. I think it's December 21st, but we are doing Swan Jeopardy. So think about all the headlines that we've tumbled through this year. Get yourself into Teams, because December 21st, we will be doing Swan Jeopardy. And we have introduced our next 2 ateliers, one on climate change in January and one, Agustin, I hope you're happy. Decryptifying crypto will be our February discussion. So that makes Agustin very happy, because he's been banging that drum for about 6 months now. So
NFTs.
And NFTs, although we're going to have a side discussion to know if those things are here to stay, or if it's this year's Groupon kind of social network. So this discussion, just to root it back with our discussion here today that you're all intrigued about, is we've got these 2 different groups of people that, I'm guessing there's a pretty good cross section of people. People interested in Earth exploration, people interested in space exploration. We're going to have some breakout groups where you can actually go into either one of those and hopefully explore some of our frontiers. We always start our ateliers and pretty much every meeting in the guild with good news, because there's so much bad news out there. I'm not too sure if there's any people in mining in our group here, but there is an asteroid that's floating somewhere between, I think, Neptune and No, I'm going to get the orbit wrong, but certainly between ourselves and the outer solar system. And it's a 10,000 quadrillion dollar lump of iron. Essentially, the whole thing is iron. They think it's actually probably the core of a planet. I think a lot of these things can sometimes just melt down into whatever the core of it was, which is metal. And so, Gordon, I'm not too sure if you've got enough wherewithal to get into space, but if you can drag that thing back here, you will be an extraordinarily rich man in Ohio.
I don't have the wherewithal to get there, but my hope is that a slightly smaller and less damaging asteroid made of gold or titanium or platinum will strike the Earth near Ohio.
Well, did you hear? We just missed an asteroid. Apparently, they didn't pick up on it. It was the size of a car, and it would have disintegrated in space. But the disturbing part of it, I guess the bad news component of this is NASA didn't even know it was passing us until it was already passed us by. So we are not completely impregnable from discovering what's coming our way. So let's root it in the here and now and the fact that we're nearly 2 years into a pandemic. And as much as we love Earth and space exploration, I think we've probably self-validated ourselves by showing up here. We've been dealing with some serious human issues on our planet in terms of the pandemic. Where's our economy going to go? Where's our health going to go? And so Morning Consult did this back in, I believe, February of this year. They did a poll and they looked at, okay, what should be the priority of exploration? And in this case, it was for space. They definitely said high priority climate, for sure. Definitely, we don't want to have dystopic sci-fi movie and have an asteroid hit us. Very big priority. Love to develop technology for space exploration. It's the reason why we have GPS and we have a whole bunch of different things that we benefit on now, because it always leads to another generation. Natural resources, yes. So back to my planet that Gord's going to bring back to planet Earth. And then lower down on the list, though, as you look at it, searching for new life, a little bit less. Sending astronauts to the moon, a little bit less. Sending astronauts to Mars, even though it's Elon's kind of hope, about a third of us. And then sending civilians to Mars, to the moon, getting lower and lower. I'm not too sure if anybody wants to take a stab at interpreting this chart. Anybody have any thoughts in terms of the great unwashed public chiming in on what the priority should be?
I think aliens are always the priority.
Spoken like a true sci-fi nerd. I love it.
I'll toss in that as fast as space commercializes and private sector runs things and makes innovation happen, government must be there to regulate. It's too new. It's too risky for the planet.
Wow, you've stepped into a void of a question I'm going to ask in a minute, Rob, but I'm not going to allow you to have any caveats. You either have to choose yes or no. I just did find this interesting. I think people do believe it's a big priority, but certainly for different reasons. And here's a ton of different headlines that have just spotted over the last month itself, both on the Earth side. Apparently, we're spotting new islands and bringing woolly mammoths back from the dead. And we've all seen civilians in space looking for new planets, looking at all the stuff that Perseverance is bringing back with the rover. So a lot of different stuff that naturally our news wrap team is actually floating and surfacing every week. So I'm going to move to a couple polls here. Let's see if I can actually get these running while the slide's still on screen. So we've definitely seen billionaires in space. The billionaires are definitely interested, but when we see just mainstream interest in total, I'm curious to know whether or not you believe there is a renewed almost 1950s, 60s, and I'm going to try to go off screen here because the poll's not coming up right away. Are we seeing a renewed interest, mainstream interest in Earth and space exploration? I'll launch the poll. Give you guys a few seconds to jump in. Are you guys seeing the poll?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I'm with Catherine. I'm looking for a maybe option.
No, I hate maybes though. It's like the worst rule of debating is saying it depends.
Got an error when trying to choose one.
I'm not able to answer the poll.
You got an error.
Attendees are now viewing. Yeah, it's weird. I'm not seeing it either. Usually there's a real-time component to this. Are you not able to vote on these guys?
I voted, but I got an error message as soon as I voted, Sean. So I presume that was just discrimination against the Irish anyway, the usual stuff.
There is
I got
no
the same.
discrimination of anybody.
Equal opportunity here.
Well,
Please
tell you
don't.
what,
Opportunity for discrimination. I like it.
tell you what, I'm gonna, okay, let's,
Show of hands.
Yeah, reinitiate.
yeah, I'm gonna go past that one, end it, and obviously it gets 0 and a 0, but let's do a show of hands. We got a small enough group of people here. Who thinks there's definitely a renewed kind of 1960-esque interest in exploration? Hands up. Who thinks it's driven by other things? And really, this is kind of more sprinkle dust and we're not all getting crazy about space and Earth. Anybody?
I'm kind of feeling that way too. I've got to wonder how much of this is really interest in space exploration. How much of it is just like the fact that everybody's into everybody's business now with influencers and just, you know, reality being everywhere.
For the people that were on the pro side, anybody want to take that line of argument? Why is there renewed interest?
I guess my caveat against that, Fernando, would be that 50 odd years ago, when moonshot and Kennedy said moonshot, that suddenly was disseminated around the world by the then equivalent of social media and otherwise. So I could argue that it has to start somewhere. And if it's influencers now versus JFK as an influencer then, or whoever came up with that phrase, context perhaps suggests that they're similar.
There's a t-shirt in there somewhere, Alan. JFK is the 1960s social media, something along those lines.
Well, they spent more money on marketing the Kennedy clan than everything else put together. Anyway, that's a different debate.
Yeah.
Buying
Well, it is
politics is
interesting,
not new.
however, that the same condition that was in place back in 1960 of Russia versus US definitely seems to be in place now, but just with two different players. If I read the tea leaves of society correctly, China is definitely getting more interested in the space arena. All right, let's see if I can move past this one and let's see if the next poll actually works. I'm sharing results which say 0 to 0. I love Zoom sometimes. It's so great. And let's see if we can move to another one. And maybe I'll have to do this on memory, but let's see. Okay, here we go. Let's see if you can do this one, guys. See if it allows you to vote. Anything?
No.
Ah, all right.
It's hanging.
So,
Zoom.
tell you what, I will read off the answers and then people can give their impassioned points of view. I've looked at kind of 6 or 7 of the main stated reasons for doing more of it or investing more of it. We do it for breakthrough scientific knowledge. We do it for new innovations that may not stay in space or Earth, but may be translated to other places. We do it to cooperate internationally. It's just our human instinct to explore, and we're just stroking it and burnishing it. We inspire hope and hopefully youth for a better tomorrow. It's for security and our defense, or it's for the survival of our species. Thoughts on that one? Why should we do more of it?
It's interesting to try to separate innovation from basic science because it seems like the things we really want to do in space require some breakthroughs in travel and habitation. And to get to Mars or anything farther, we need to make more progress in the neighborhood. And that's kind of science and innovation. And it seems like the bigger outcomes are on the other side of an R&D hump.
It's a good answer. It's a good point of view. Other thoughts in terms of why invest more in it? And just for some perspective, if you look at NASA's budget, it was about 4% of the federal budget back in 1960s. It is now at about 0.5% of the federal budget. So it's definitely like an eighth by comparison, but obviously private corporations are getting more involved too. Any thoughts in terms of why we should invest more in exploration?
I'd go with the cooperation one. And my simple justification is SDG 17, Partnerships for the Goals, because that in my mind has always been the most important SDG. We see it in build up to COP26, fractures everywhere. The only collaboration is sort of a few countries ganging up against the Chinese. Is that international cooperation and collaboration gets us anywhere? So maybe space is a route where collaboration can trump competition and geopolitics.
That's a great hope.
I know, I'm an optimist.
No, I do love it. Unfortunately, when I look at Hollywood, it tends to like to go down the dystopic arenas, but yeah. Last thought in terms of this one, any reasons why we should do more of it?
Hey, Sean, I think this is Sheila. I think one of the things that, it's great to have a lot of the really positive focus on space exploration, but I feel that a lot of the focus around those billionaire interest in that space is for revenue generating. So how do you balance this whole market for civilians to go up in space and earn money off of that, off of other people who are millionaires and billionaires, with a true pure focus on science or for the good of mankind? I think there's something we have to understand and be aware of and balance that with our expectations.
That's a great point, Sheila, and certainly one that, it was funny when I guess in a span of week or 2 weeks, it was Branson, then Bezos, and then Elon was sending stuff up, and it just seemed like everybody on Twitter and social media was mad at a billionaire white man that wanted to go into space, and I was trying to figure out why, and I think you might have stumbled on it. Like, are we doing it for the right reasons? Or maybe they're. Yep.
Sorry,
Michael.
If I could chime in, I think it's a mixture of the lack of philanthropy and the social expectation, right? So let me explain what that means. When we look at people spending a lot of money on space exploration, and we're already at the cusp of an environmental meltdown, not to be sensational, but the point is why are we spending money and putting effort towards perhaps a revenue generating opportunity, as Sheila suggested, when in fact we may not even have enough time to explore more science and primary research and so on. So I think it frustrated me personally from the perspective of, like, if we're going to invest, let's invest in these techniques, these capabilities that allow us to explore, and it allow us to look back on the planet and say, hey, that's home. If you read sci-fi, they always talk about that. That's home. And you get a grander picture of how small it is. So my hope is that we can all see that, and that should be the investment technique. So we all have that survival of our species kind of mentality.
I agree, Michael. Great point. And Yvonne, you've got your hand up, I believe.
Yes, I definitely agree. It's for the survival of the human race, especially with populations rising. We are definitely in need of other solutions for energy. With like the uses of fossil fuels, I mean, we need another source of energy, and I'm really into like space-based solar power, and I think we really need to invest in that. And also education. I feel like there's an awareness. A lot of people think that space is irrelevant when actually we are on a planet in space. So definitely there needs to be more awareness of how space is important, and it has to start at like K through 12, because we're only teaching about our solar system when we should in fact be teaching about all these other galaxies that we could be exploring.
It's a great point. It's so funny. It's like we had a session on the future of education, Yvonne. I think if it was left up to this guild, we would have kids in class for 24 hours a day learning about the things they really should learn about. Like, there's just so much out there, isn't there? But I agree. I'm not too sure what K-12 is doing right now, but more of it. Last one here with Jeff, who's got his hand up, and we'll pivot to the next question. Jeff?
Actually, my hand up was from before, but I'll just make this really quick. So I'm old enough that I actually went through the first space ray. And I will say that there is definitely a qualitatively different tone this time. It's definitely sort of more popish and less intentional. There was a certain intention that was behind the first push.
Yeah, it's trying to separate. Are we different, or is the space movement different? Any thought on that one, Jeff?
We're different.
Okay, there we go. Space reflects life, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yep.
All right. I am going to see what the next poll suggests. Let's see what the third one was. What are you more interested in? So we actually did say, look, there's three choices here. You can be interested in Earth, space, or you prefer solving the more immediate human problems, and neither of those things. So which of you are most interested in space in our group of people here today? Hands up. So we have a few space people. I think I'm on space too. Sure. Who's interested in Earth and Earth exploration? All right. And then who is going to the moral high ground of there are many more immediate pressing concerns, and that space and Earth is not the end all and be all? Hands up. See, I knew this was a stupid question, because it's like if you were willing to entertain coming into this space today, you're probably going to be one or the other. So I won't even invite discussion on that one. Just we'll go to the fourth one. So Rob, you stepped into it earlier. Are private, corporate, and billionaire exploration ambitions a good or bad thing? So you have to choose, okay? There's no depends, there's no caveats, there's no, oh, if it only had this. So writ large, for the private and corporate investment in exploration, be it Earth or space, is a very good thing. Hands up. All right. And for the con, it is a bad thing and should be, for the most part, getting rid of. Hands up. Wow. And I know Sheila, Gina, Catherine, and Sylvia, I can't see you, but I presume you might be ambivalent about it, but I see more of us into private investment. Thoughts in terms of stuff, and now you can add your caveats if you need to.
Yeah, there's nothing like a private sector initiative, but the problem with markets is negative externalities. And there are global risks that these private space programs aren't necessarily considering. I think the nightmare one is the Kessler syndrome, in which low orbit becomes useless for the foreseeable future. But also, I'll drop a link, an article about how the Starlink constellation is a problem for Earth-based astronomy. We're putting stuff up in space and imposing costs on others. Really not a strong point of the private sector.
And you raise a good point too. If you feel like, wow, we've got 18 people and I've got some really good stuff on it, please put it in the chat, because we are going to tumble through it later. So Nathan, if you've got anything on that, that'd be great. I think you've already done that. Appreciate it. Thoughts in terms of constraining private involvement in stuff. Any thoughts in terms of how to do it or why? Jordan?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think they're clearly, to the points that Nathan just raised, there's clearly the need for some level of global moderation, whether that's the UN or whatever. It will happen, just like cybersecurity is happening on a global basis. We can't see it yet. You know, we see European Union acting, we see the state of California acting. At some point, there'll be a least common denominator that is taking place. With space, as it gets junkier, there has to be that moderation for everyone's self-interest. And I think the thing that's different now is when you go back to the 60s and the initial exploration of space, and it was very much a geopolitical adversarial thing between nations and people groups as far as how it played out on the big screen for all of us. today, geopolitics involves providing a means for people of different places and different systems to find their way to be successful on a global basis, or they're going to get disintermediated eventually. So nobody's doubling down on a national focus on something. And when I say nobody, I mean nobody who's going to explore space. So back to the earlier commentary, I was going to chime in, but private investment, private interest in space exploration, I think why is it happening now? Why is it a good thing? If you think back to electricity, just for a simple example, our good friend Ben Franklin was really aware of electricity and demonstrated he could harness it somehow. But it took another 100 years before a couple of private interest people started to figure out how to make money out of it. And of course, the 100 years that followed that was the most advanced society's been since we've ever recorded it. So while they may have not necessarily the purest motives, we can't always judge, there will be good to come out of private interest in this. And the point is it's progressed far enough to where people can figure out, or they think they figured out how they can make money out of it. We've got to then put in the moderation to keep that from advancing. And I think the conditions for doing that on a global basis are better than they've ever been.
Yeah, very much in keeping with my view there, Gordon. I think just it's amazing, just the cost to push a kilogram into space has gone down by almost 1/10 over the last 10 or 15 years. Maybe NASA could have done that themselves. I'm not too sure, but I think part of that may just be having different crazy minds like Elon out there trying to figure that one out and seeing how to do it. So last one, and then we'll get into breakout rooms, because I know on a lot of our stuff we really like to get into the conversation with people and have some of the richness of thought there. We'll make the last one a fun one. I had a couple of others here, but the future will look like Star Trek and the pyramid, or the frontier of discovery. It's going to look like Star Wars and conflict and drama. It's going to look like Blade Runner and dystopia. And I was really finding a tough time trying to find hope for the future. Close Encounters of the Third Kind is probably the best sci-fi movie I found. So let's take a 50-year view on this one. The 50-year view of space. Yeah, let's go 100. 100-year view of space. Will it be more Star Trek-y, Star Wars, Blade Runner, Close Encounters, or you're going to go off the map and tell me something else? Any thoughts?
I'm thinking The Expanse. I think that feels closest to capitalism in space. Because some of these other ones feel a little bit more unrealistic to me, or really scary. So kind of thinking it's going to be, it feels like it's going to be a bit more of the same.
Okay, fair note. We can go around the room real quickly. I'm a Star Trek advocate. I'm entirely hopeful in Discovery, and my whole life is based on the principles of Star Trek. So why not? Gordon?
I'm Blade Runner. I think over 100 years, it's so predictably fraught with danger that as much as we try to make it look civilized, there's some underlying currents we're not going to know about or be able to manage. We can try, and that's kind of where I'm coming from, is let's try. And it's with the intention that you have in the Star Trek Discovery frame of mind, but I'm looking for it. I see it playing out more as Blade Runner. But
love it. Alan?
Yeah, I'm conflicted. I'm going to come down on Star Wars rather than Blade Runner. I see it as conflict, which may well be managed through the application of Discovery, but yeah, a large chunk of the planet will be conflict, some of it in dystopia, and the hope is, I don't know. As an optimist, I still struggle with the hope over that time scale. So Star Wars.
I love it. We're establishing some tenor here. So Daniel, what's your thought?
Hopeful, at least on the 50-year span, it's going to be about discovery and advancement. For my own dystopia concern, 100 years out. Maybe not so much Blade Runner, but more Elysium.
Okay.
Which is, the path of discovery toward dystopia for the masses. And hopefully we don't get to, Star Wars level where we just have very, very, even more expensive wars against each other or others.
Note, and good to go off the board on that one too. I like that choice. Rob?
I think that it's going to be positive because as the world gets bigger and more connected, there is a hope that I have that the global institutions will affect the balance and control of things to lean that way. Otherwise, people won't be allowed to play.
Fair note. It's kind of we've talked a lot about the future of capitalism. Maybe this is all rolled into that same thing. Yvonne?
So I've only seen the first two. So I would have to say it's a combination. What really inspired me specifically about Star Wars was Senator Amidala. So for me, I would say like I come from like a humanitarian aspect. Like what if there's planets that half of it is, in poverty and we have to save, some of those civilizations. So I'm hoping that it's not going to be warlike like as in Star Wars, but I'm hoping that from the human race that we can stand up for other civilizations in the future. And I see with the innovation, there's a lot of organizations that are working on interstellar travel. I don't think it's that far out that we're going to make that happen. So I definitely believe that there has to be a combination of Star Trek and Star Wars in the future.
There you go. Playing that middle line. I like it. All right. Quick ones around the room, just so we can get to our breakouts. Agustin, what's your thought?
I'm like Daniel, I've been reflecting on kind of iRobot. And so mine is dystopian probably, because I've been wondering about when robots come to be fully knowledgeable, do they are gonna turn the cameras off and the mics as I've been sitting with my Google Home that they are hearing me and stuff, and it's like, will they grab a knife and and poke me to death on my sleep? It's like, I don't know. Probably if they don't like me, my robot is like, shit, I'm gonna kill this guy. So, but I don't know. In future, I think we establish a lunar base quickly and a Mars base, and we will explore from there. So, but kind of in a dystopian way. The richer, the poorer, poorer. I don't know.
All right. Well, tell you what, I'm going to leave it there unless people that haven't spoken yet have a real passion about something or another, just so we can get to the rest of our time together. Any thoughts? I know, Sylvia, you're a big future fiction fan. I'm not too sure if you want to chime in, but.
Yes, sure. I was mentioning For All Mankind, which some of you might know. It's an Apple TV show, and it's an Uchronia. And what is especially nice is it's politically very deep, and it's also at the mix of discovery, conflict, and resolution of conflict. Maybe a little hope. I think it's super realistic, and for me, I think it's one of the best depiction, if you can use that word, of what could be our space travel and space discovery experience today. Just wanted to mention it.
Wonderful. Wow. And Nathan, quick.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the right one here. If we think of the ocean as a metaphor for space, I can't quite decide if it's more beach blanket bingo or Jaws. Basically, we're playing around in the surf zone and fancying ourselves being in space. And I think when we start trying to get beyond Earth orbit, we're going to discover just how far away everything is. And for a century or longer, the real space exploration is going to be done by machines.
Looks like we're going to need a bigger boat, Nathan, to stay within your Jaws metaphor.
Yeah, I don't know what the shark represents.
All right. The notion of our breakout here, I'm going to try to excite you at least with some of the things that we want to get out of our breakout. And we'll break out into about 4 groups with the mission of doing 3 things. 1, surface what are the 2 most exciting things about the future of exploration, taking kind of let's take a 50-year view on this. And that could be Earth or space exploration. So, and then also, what's the most concerning thing? And what's a question that you would like a group of us to tumble over after this discussion? So 2 great things, 1 concerning thing, and 1 big question that you'd love to talk about. That's what each group's mission is to come back with. And I'll divvy up people in groups just to excite you a little bit. We're bringing woolly mammoths back. I don't know if you've seen this. This was an article this week, but they are going to clone a mammoth with an elephant and be able to have elephants in colder climes, I suppose. NASA first Earth-size habitable zone world that they've spotted. They're pretty sure of it. So maybe we do have other life in space. We'll see. And finding new species all the time. We keep finding them. They're always on the bottom of the ocean, but I'm waiting for the Kraken to be found someplace. This one interesting, just as you look at discovery and undiscovered parts, indigenous lands tends to be a lot more environmentally friendly than the rest of the world. Maybe we can learn something there. Planet 9, is this Planet 9? Yep. So it's 10 times the size of Earth, and it's out there, and Pluto might have been downgraded, but this one might get upgraded. Asian hornets, problems. And then this one was just an anomaly. I have no idea why I put this in, but I found it strangely curious that there is an animal out there that poops in cubes. So, our Earth exploration there. So yeah, we're going to go into 4 breakout rooms. I'll see if this works. And any questions in terms of what we're wanting to do. Hopefully there'll be a scribe of the room that can write in chat after the room what we've done. I'm just going to assign people automatically. And any questions? So 2 things that you're really excited about, 1 thing that you're really concerned about the future of exploration, and then 1 question that would be a really intriguing thing to look at from different facets. Does that make sense? Wonderful. We'll be back at 4:40 now. Hopefully we can be back at the hour and then do a quick debrief and see where we go from there. We got some housekeeping at the end too. So here we go. Let's hope it works. Not like the polls. Open all rooms. And I'll be here to help if you need help in joining. Daniel, Michael, you good?
I got locked out. Locked out.
Somebody's just in the room. C. Cook.
Yes. Hi.
We're just having a breakout room right now in terms of some of our discussion. Any interest in joining or?
Actually, the challenge that I've got is I'm sitting in New Zealand. So,
yep. Oh, it's late.
Well, it's just kicked off early morning, so I've got to head into a meeting. So I was actually hoping that I could get the recording post the event.
Will do.
Ah, awesome. Thank you so much.
No worries at all. Really good seeing you. Have a great day.
Likewise. Thanks, and have a good evening or morning. Where are you? Like early morning?
I'm in Canada, so I mean it's around 5 o'clock.
5 p.m. in the past for me.
Yeah, I know. Tell me how my rest of my day is going to be. My hope is it's going to be good. So
it's looking good. It's looking good. All right, man.
I will definitely make sure you are a registrant on here, so I'll definitely make sure I get the video out to you.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good day.
Be good.
Yes.
Gordon, like Pavlov, you just jumped for the blue button, didn't you?
You knew it. Yeah. I was going to say I was a fan of the space elevator for the space transport. I really like that idea.
We had 4 groups. My hope is some of us can hang out for the next 10 or 15 minutes and just try to figure out what was discussed and what were some of the big revelations. I think Agustin, you were in group 1. Anybody want to speak for your group and what you guys tumbled over?
Yes.
I took some notes, but Augustine and Sylvia, please join in if I missed something. We had a really great conversation and covered lots of ground. I think Augustine mentioned something about the Netflix, broadcasting live from space and how the future might be. 2 things: it's going to be more real because of the billionaires that are going in there high profile, making it real for everyone, probably, propelling it into something a little bit bigger than what it is right now in people's minds. But also then we thought about there's an opportunity for entertainment and reality TV shows and, the survival in space. So that was something kind of interesting that came out of our conversation. But then I liked what Sylvia had mentioned about being very, very optimistic about the opportunities that humans have in space, right? We talked about, it's about whatever we do, wherever we go in the world and in the universe, it's going to be about humanity. And through COVID, we found that people coming together really can make a difference. So, we did have a lot of people saying Blade Runner and it's kind of a depressing scenario. And I sometimes find that there are signals that are pointing in that direction, but I like Sylvia's take on it, is that COVID kind of brought us together in a way that we hadn't been in a very long time, and it shows what's possible for humanity. So I think the consensus was that humanity was going to save us and not technology. Technology could augment us. We had a great conversation about what that could look like, maybe transhumanism, where technologies are actually going to help us survive on places like Mars and in moon bases and things. And then the final thing that we thought about was a lot of things that are happening right now are building blocks for how we're going to actually have a space economy, right? We'll have the internet in space, thanks to probably people like Elon Musk. We already have 3D printers on space stations. They're mining regolith from the moon. Maybe they're printing parts, replacement parts and things like that. So eventually there'll be, opportunities to have an economy that just lives in space. And but it will come down to people and not technology. And I think that's a good wrap up. Did I miss anything, either of you guys?
A great group, man, like a lot of really good futurists. Although I was depressed when we sent you away for 20 minutes and the best that came back was a reality show. I was like, oh, thank God you got to some of the good stuff. Yeah. Alan, you were in group 2. I'm not too sure who is speaking for you, but
yep. I've got that task on behalf of Fernando, Rob, and myself. Right, let me find my notes here. We started with exploration, and then we moved to space. Sorry, then we moved to Earth, and then we came back to space. Exploration was very positive. The kind of opportunities we saw emerging were, issues such as increasing knowledge and moving technology forward. And it's connected with, that was from Fernando, and Rob talked about the way in which, space exploration has just been completely revolutionized from a cost perspective based on very new methods, such as those in India, where you get volunteers and governments and various other, unlikely bedfellows coming together in this cause of creating a whole new, effective way to go to market, an application of new technology. We talk about some of the great big contests that emerged there, whether they're the contest between the ego of individuals or whether it is nations like Israel staking their claim to being a part of the space race. And I then talked about, at a human level, the fact that space and exploration of it brings about a curiosity, more people looking up at the sky, and they stay looking at it when the satellites have passed. and more people talking about space than I have done maybe for 50 years, new dialogues, new conversations in public discourse. When we came to talk about Earth, we were much more, we seemed to be more negative and more focused on risk. You know, the world is huge. We don't understand the land, let alone the ocean. We keep finding new species. And hopefully we, so, I'm not sure, was it Robert Fernandez said very memorably, I hope we keep finding them while they're still there, rather than extinct, I think would have been the sentence. Yeah, space is hard to explore, but it's easier than the oceans. A vacuum is easier than 3 tons of pressure to explore in. And Fernando gave us one that perhaps might send us to sleep with one eye open. With permafrost and glacial melt going on, are there pathogens from generations, millennia ago? They're going to emerge along with the frost, and if so, shouldn't we go and have a look for them? And we finished on the optimism of quantum measurement and the breakthroughs in quantum measurement, which are likely to make dramatic leaps forward in our technology and understanding, in our medicines, in our way of living, way of exploring space. Quantum measurement is the key to the application of quantum science to so many things, whether it's mini robots or lag elimination across space. The metaverse becomes real, not just Zuck's invention. And all three of us would jump on a chance to go into space if the cost was reasonable. Nice.
And you just filled my bingo card. Somebody said metaverse in the discussion we had today. So you did it, Alan.
Well, I'm reporting on behalf of us.
We should get Alan to narrate it and summarize it, because Fernando, were we in the room? That was good. Thank you, Alan, for expressing what we communicated.
That was really good.
Wow. Well, it's really good, guys. It sets a very high expectation for Group 3, I suppose. I know it was Catherine's group. Anybody want to speak for Group 3's findings?
Did we have findings, or we just talk about stuff?
Either is okay. We can get the
Is there a difference?
Yeah. Well, let's see. We talked about the basic problem of interstellar travel and time, and it seems like the solutions that we have are all from fiction, and they're also all fictional. So not sure those are actually answered or answerable. Did get into the exciting part of looking down from orbit, and the really democratizing applications there. Capabilities that were not just government, but super duper secret just 30 years ago, that you can get on the web or you can pay for a better version. Towards the end, we were starting to talk about the different models for orbital traffic control. We've got manned and unmanned, or crewed or uncrewed vehicles up there. We've got entrepreneurs putting up vehicles, unaware of them necessarily clearing their orbital paths with anyone else. And the desirability for all of us that we don't have everything running into everything else up there. And we had a little discussion over what the right metaphor is. Is it air traffic control or ocean traffic control? And this is a political question as well as a practical one. No conclusions, but certainly something that seems like worth digging into. Miss anything else, Catherine, Daniel?
I think the only thing, just building on the air traffic control versus ocean control, is we need to actually set up some kind of governance system at a global scale, where there's shared benefit and shared respect for the sky above whichever stakeholder country. And the early undeveloped thought is similar to how we're pricing carbon to create incentives and to share fiat currency of any kind between stakeholders. You could implement a system where Elon's got Starlink satellites crossing over countries that are not using their own space. There should be something in it for them monetarily for that trespass, whether they receive service from that satellite or orbital vehicle infrastructure. And the other thing too is, the more exciting thing is whoever controls space is going to control everything next. I think just like Amazon's gotten great at being an infrastructure and platform company and can theoretically sell us anything or deliver anything they put their minds to. It's going to be similar to that with space, unless we get some kind of global shared interest governance model in place.
Disturbing view just crossed my path of Amazon Prime for space. Like we're demanding packages, like single unit packages coming to us somewhere on Mars. It's coming to a place near you, I suppose.
Yeah. The other flip side to that is say like a satellite looking down, as its primary, value, for private interest generally. There should be some trade-off there that benefits everybody. So what do we do with the other side of the piece of equipment? Does that provide improved value for the global collective by really making, real-time, better space visuals, space information, early detection, all these kind of things as a communal good? And that could be something that a UN or a global body introducing governance into that new foray of space should look at for everybody.
Wonderful. Some good brain power spent in that 20 minutes in that group, for sure. Gordon, you want to kick us off in our group? I made good notes, but you really led us well.
Well, thanks. I was hoping to do the leading so I wouldn't need to do the report out, but I did take notes as well, and I'll let you chime in. And I think the rest of our group's still here. Quickly, we talked about things that excited us, included the potential solution to some health issues, advances in health science that come from exploration. Also, just that private sector opportunities in space create opportunities for the whole public. They'll eventually open it for more than just those who can afford to be there. They're there for a reason. When they figure out how to monetize it, it'll be open to us. And yeah, it may cost, but anything worthwhile has a cost. We also talked about just, Sean, I think it was you mentioned that the link between Earth and space really is that we're all resource starved. So when we explore space, we understand the constraints of what do we have, what don't we have, in a way that illuminates maybe better the constraints we're already under at home on the ground. And I chimed in that I think space exploration in particular, and all exploration, really puts life in context for us. As we look to the future, we look to things that are unknown and all that ambiguity, and we look to the vastness of what we don't understand. We kind of say, okay, well, who am I? It answers that question for us a little bit by telling us who we're not or what we're not. So that was kind of my wrap up of the things that excited us about exploration and space in particular. On the concerning things, we talked about a few things. One is, Yvonne mentioned the expiration of the International Space Station is coming up in 2 years. And so the concern is, will that be the end of all the collaboration and research for all those companies that are tied up in that? And will it be the end or diminish the international governmental collaboration that takes place there? You think about geopolitical adversaries, there are many of them who are collaborating quite well in space on that space station and have for decades. Another thing we talked about is just, again, is this the priority that Earthlings should be focused on, is space exploration? We got bigger fish to fry at home, so to speak. And we also talked about the capitalistic view of space. And Sean coined a phrase that I think is going to live on, if I have anything to do with it, that the polarization of our world, our planet, has now found its way into space. So it's coming. And what we talked about as far as a topic to tumble over, a big question maybe to answer, I proposed, let's take that very problem that Sean teed up. How do we take the polarization that's occurring in our current lives in this planet on any topic and prevent it from taking over, or eliminate that as a possibility for outer space? Use that as the frontier that we call it quits on and use that as the example that maybe will work its way back into earthbound living. Sean, anything to add, or others?
So I just maybe hear from Yvonne just a little bit, because she is wearing a NASA sweater. Oh my God.
Yes.
So fashion centric for our discussion, but as well, just you brought up a whole bunch of education that I wasn't aware of too, in terms of the Airbus and a whole bunch of other things. Just any additional thoughts in terms of just educating ourselves about space, Yvonne?
I brought up something that I was very interested in, is that the private sector is opening up a lot of different programs for space entrepreneurs. One of them is Airbus. I think they're launching like a program for space entrepreneurship. I think it's only about like $3,000, but that's way better than a lot of costs. I mean, like for this is something I didn't mention, but to be a member of the Spaceport Alliance, it's $1,000 a year. So definitely, if we can try and work on like if we can increase access to space by lowering the cost to others in the public. And then one thing that I really did mention that I have a strong passion for is the ISS. It's not just the private industry that there are a lot of companies that are invested in the ISS, but also universities and colleges. And there's there's an international community that the ISS represents, and I fear what's going to happen after that. I mean, the ISS is our foundation for the future, and I understand that there's Axiom space, but Axiom doesn't. I mean, the ISS represents so much, and I feel that we should be focusing on an ISS too, or with 3D printing. How can we I don't know, they said that the ISS is expiring because of some of its parts. I mean, how can maybe we can reproduce those parts? Like, how can we keep this international cooperation going? And then one last thing that I did bring up also was transportation. Like, how can we get 100 people into space at once? Like, there's 7 billion people of us, and only roughly 500 have been into space. So we need to up our transportation, like how many people can fit in one spacecraft at a time to get to space.
And trivia question, because you knew the answer, how many people have been in space to date? Yvonne?
I think it's like 500 and something, but I know it's only like 65 are women that have been to space.
And nobody from Uruguay, apparently.
No.
Yeah, I'm working on that. I'll flip you for it.
This is good, guys. I really enjoyed this. This is my weekend technically starts tomorrow, so this is like my last work thing for the week. So this has been on a high note. Although I will summarize this quickly, because if I don't summarize this, like it'll leak. Couple of different things I would love to do. We have these wild ambitions, myself and Rob, that we go like we'll get a group of 12 people and we'll pull it all together, and then somehow voodoo and magic don't happen, and then it leaks into the future. So my hope is we can do an agile version of summarizing what we've talked about here, some of the presentation that we've got, some of the learnings that we have here. If I spit learnings back out to all of you with some open sections here in terms of, look, can we fill in some blanks here? Maybe we can scaffold together something that we could realistically over a 2 or 3 week period of time pull together, and not feel like the weight of the world is on everybody's shoulders, given everybody's busy lives. Would you guys be game to contribute, and then we'll get the rest of the guild involved, or at least the people that are interested in this topic?
What a quilt making bee is. This is a sense making bee about the future. Sylvia taught me how to do this in real time, where thoughtful things can be put together. We keep the video, there's the chat, and it's cut, paste, write really quickly. Don't think too hard. There'll be editor bees that come in afterwards, but we can build something that is a product from this effort.
Sylvia's the fountain of all pragmatism. She reminded me on an email earlier on today. It's like, yeah, I was going to do that, but there were too many moving parts. So we don't want moving parts. Just, yeah. So, and my hope is...
we are talking about space travel though, right?
No, like just make it like a Tesla. Just have it like one car, get it into space. So certainly get in touch with any of us here. My hope is you've written people's names down or whatever. I'll email everybody, and if you're comfortable, hopefully I'll have everybody's emails in there. So if you know a person's name and you want to get in touch with them, great. I want to thank some of our first timers that came in for our discussion today. I'll note them by name: Alan, Sheila, Fernando, Yvonne. Am I missing anybody? No, I think, well, we had some other people. There were some people that got stranded outside of the breakout rooms too that decided to go home. But just a little bit of housekeeping before we finish, just in case you're curious about other things that are going on guild-wise. We've stoked maybe your interest beyond this topic. You know, Seattle is our feature city of the month. We've got a Seattle virtual town hall. So if you know anybody from the Pacific Northwest that loves kind of our guild stuff, Seattle is kind of my adopted second US city. And last month, Chicago was our feature city, and we had about 50 or 60 new people from Chicago join our guild. So an effective tool. We've introduced a new thing. So every other Friday on Clubhouse, we have a Futures and Sense Making series. So we talk about the how and the why we do what we do. And so the next one is 1 p.m. Eastern Time, September 24th. Last time we talked about why futures and foresight matter. This time we're talking about why sense making and critical thinking matter. Yeah, Sylvia, we had a pretty good discussion last time. We had like 65 people or something show up, and we really didn't even promote it. So so hopefully you can join us for that. And Rob, do you want to give some press to this?
Yeah, we're doing a, what's this one? This is the hybrid work. Sorry, Sean, I was a little distracted.
This is the thing I hope you're writing this week.
Yeah, that's right. I'm the lead editor for the Wrap this week, where we gather news and items and information in one spot to make sense of the world in the week that was. And we wrap the Wrap on Sunday with a live clubhouse where we go round table on some of these items, and the theme is hybrid work. I have a theory that we are entering the hybrid era of work. It will be default. It will not be the exception. Our kids will think of work only in hybrid terms. This is the hybrid generation.
Well,
so it's Coke and Pepsi.
I was going to say Pepsi may steal that. Thank you, Rob. And then we do have this weather vane that we're about to close out. We've got enough responses, but if you want to sneak in, it's the bit.ly at GSG weather vane 4. And it's really just asking you, post-pandemic, where do you think all this stuff is going to settle out? And then finally, people always go, look, that thing that we did on Clubhouse was great, or that thing that we did on Ateliers are great, but like, can we really meaningfully make some impact here? And can I really get involved and participate? The sense makers have built 9 different projects that they've looked at. We're going to post something on our website, which is almost like a help wanted or a project ad kind of thing, where it's just like, hey, if you're interested in any one of these 9 projects, we're looking for anywhere from 8 to 15 people to step up and see if they'd be interested. And I think heading into 2022, we've got some interesting partners, some interesting things that we can do with some of this. So these are the 9 projects. Message me at info@grayswanguild.org if any one of those 9. And I know, Gordon, you stepped up, and we're still looking at the ethics of AI and the bottom right box. But yeah, just let me know if you're interested, and we'll obviously make that web link available. That is all. This is now the after hours. Officially, I will stop recording.